Welcome back to another show, guys. Hope everyone is having a fantastic Thursday night. The CEO killer Luigi Mangione has returned to New York City, which is still in shock over what happened just a few weeks ago. Check it out.
The terrorism and the violence that stems from it is something that would not be tolerated in the city. We wanted to personally be here to show the symbolism of leading from the front. The apprehension, some of these detectives will finally sleep tonight after this person has been brought to justice here in New York City. We want to thank our partners in the other jurisdictions that played a vital role in this apprehension, particularly the McDonald's employee who saw something and did something, notifying the proper authorities. I will say this over and over again. The radicalization that is taking place across our country, we cannot ignore. When you see an incident that took place on our streets, when you witness a shooting that took place on a school campus by now a young girl, it is the continuation of our young people are crying out for help. We have an obligation not only to make apprehensions after an incident of this magnitude, but to do far more to prevent it. We'll open up for a few questions.
Time for a few questions. Dean, go first.
Dean,
do you have a...
Mr. Mayor, what does this mean for the investigation that he's back in New York?
Commissioner?
He will be arraigned today on his indictment for the killing of Brian Thompson, CEO of United Healthcare, and he'll be arraigned in federal court.
Any other questions?
What do you want to say, Mayor, about the supporters of Luigi, wearing Luigi costumes, supporters of Luigi across the country?
The beauty of this country is that you have the right to protest the right. And those who are protesting when someone used violence to solve a problem, we saw that on the school ground as well. It sends the wrong message. A person that uses a gun to solve a concern, if it's on a school campus or on our streets, there are mechanisms in this country on how to organize on those issues of concern. We saw young people who were tired of shootings on school ground. They organized and pushed Congress to do weapon bans. That is how we do it here. We don't use a gun. And anyone that celebrates that, it is vile, and it is sending the wrong message, and you're celebrating using violence to solve an issue.
Now, what's his next stop? Where's he going to be? What's his next stop?
His next stop, he's going to be taken to the federal building at 290 Broadway for processing by the FBI and the NYPD.
Great. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, so Eric Adams there, Jessica Tisch, the police commissioner, both talking about Luigi Mangione, saying that violence is never the answer, that this cannot be allowed to go on in the streets of New York. Mayor Adams talking about the overall cycle of violence in this country, including the school shooting at that Christian school the other day, Jackie.
Paul, I want to go back to what we were discussing before, because Mayor Adams somewhat touched on this, just sort of when a person uses a gun to solve a problem, whether it be on a New York City street on camera, as we saw in this incident, or on school grounds, that should not be celebrated. What's the challenge that investigators are going to have in talking about this case when there is so much discussion around it in terms of generating a support system for this guy? I mean, he's had a following developed.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And, you know, one of the things that the federal case might do, especially with the death penalty on the table, is that it could very well de-romanticize this entire thing, because very clearly it's not leading any place good. And, you know, I don't quite see how there's reporting out that somehow or other the cases are going to run on parallel tracks. Now, the state charges are terrorism related, and they fit. Federally, just be clear, we don't have the terrorism, because in federal charges, you almost always need a connection to a foreign power, an overseas entity, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, et cetera. It's a little bit of a hole in our system. We don't really have a domestic terrorism charge. The charge here federally is murder. And that goes a little bit to your question, Jackie. This is a lot less romanticized than some ideological person. He killed a father and husband. He's not a hero. There's nothing romantic about him. He's probably going to end up on death row federally, and he's looking at a lot of hard roads. So the idea that somehow or other this person who's still innocent until proven guilty, but the case looks very compelling, and he's certainly nobody to celebrate.
Hey guys, want to welcome everyone to the stream. This is absolutely insane what's going on in New York with Luigi Mangione. But hey guys, welcome to the show. Shout out to Deanne B1 in the chat. Let's go. Hope everyone is having a great night. Thanks for leaving a like and subscribing, guys. If this is your first time on the channel, we stream every weekday, 5 p.m. right here on whatever's breaking, guys. Want to bring y'all the truth and show y'all what is, what is really going on in our world. And this is what I was going to say on this case when I was looking at this video. Mayor Eric Adams talked about Mangione being brought back to New York City. And while it's important that he's saying something, words aren't always enough. This case shows us, guys, how important it is to take these violent crimes seriously and act quickly to protect people. New Yorkers want to feel safe and know that their leaders are doing everything that they can to keep dangerous criminals off the street. And I don't care what the world is saying right now, and it's insane to see all these posts in support of Luigi Mangione. I don't care what anyone says. This guy is 100% a criminal, and this should have been prevented. It's not, guys, it's not just about talking. It's about taking action that makes a real difference for families and communities. The fact that the CEO of a huge major company can be gunned down in the streets, absolutely, it's shameful, ridiculous. I can't believe it. I'm still in shock over the details of this case. But anyway, let me know what you think in the stream, guys, and we'll continue this video.
So, Paul, why do you think? Because if you take a look at the federal charges, count one is stalking, travel in interstate commerce. Count two is stalking as well. I guess that's traveling from Georgia up to New York for the murder. Count three is murder through use of a firearm. Count four is a firearm offense. Why do you think the federal government felt the need to jump in here and supersede the state charges?
Very, very good question. This happens in the terrorism world where you have these sort of battles, but they generally occur behind the scenes before you get to the point of an indictment. In this case, you had the state indictment, and then they came in and essentially overrode it. And this is an override. I mean, make no mistake. Had the feds not done this, he would be walking now into a state arraignment. Instead, he's going into a federal arraignment. Once he goes in there, I'd be very surprised if he comes out. I don't think you're going to get the state arraignment, or if you do, you're not getting it today. Could happen. Like I said, this is somewhat unprecedented, but the feds are not going to be looking to give up this body. I think he's going to be going into federal lockup. And, it's one of the things that de-romanticizes this whole thing, keeps him safe, keeps him out of the public eye, is he goes in and that's it. I think that's also why they brought him in by plane and then chopper, as opposed to some long drive by car from Pennsylvania. That way it's not trailed by all kinds of media. This is just a way to do this neater and cleaner. But very clearly, the federal government wanted to make a statement here that they think this punches at their weight. They very well may want to send a statement to the people that think he's a hero. But then there's the fact that we are getting a new U.S. attorney, an attorney general, after some point after 20 January, when Pam Bondi is presumably confirmed. And there's going to be a whole new atmosphere here. And I don't think they're going to be very interested in the entreaties of the Bragg office, because they have this case now. They want to drive it all the way through. And the Trump administration, as you mentioned, may be far more interested in bringing this thing to death penalty.
Paul, how do you expect prosecutors to sort of change the way that they're talking about the individuals involved in this case as prosecution gets underway? Because it seems like, you mentioned de-romanticizing, but, the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, maybe his job makes him an unsympathetic victim to, some people who are in Luigi Mangione's camp, but he is a husband and a father. And Luigi Mangione, I mean, he's an Ivy Leaguer, prominent family, and yet has become this sort of icon of the, Marxism and anti-capitalism. Do you expect that there's going to be a heavy emphasis on sort of changing the contours of this discussion when the case gets prosecuted?
You very well may get those sorts of statements embedded in press releases and in interviews that are given by the government that are outward facing. Look, Mangione had everything going for him. Let's not sugarcoat this. Kid was an Ivy League graduate. He was going to inherit apparently a multi-million-dollar empire. His grandparents came from nothing, built themselves up. Thompson has a similar story. This is one of those situations where the narrative that the people in Mangione's camp would like doesn't really fit, because Thompson fought his way up in a far more hardscrabble way than Mangione did. So, that narrative doesn't really fit. And let's remember something else, too. There are still a lot of gaps in Mangione's story. One of the first things he said when he got collared was, hey, I did this on my own. I want this to be clear. I did this on my own. That strikes me as a little bit too forward. He really wanted to imprint that. And there are a number of gaps in his travel log. He was in Hawaii. Then all of a sudden he goes to ground in San Francisco where everything goes dark, including to his family. I think that there's a lot of investigation to come on this thing, and that's one of the reasons why it's good to have federal reach, because they could scrape at all of this stuff all over the country.
All right, Paul, stand by with us if you would, as we see the video from not too long ago of Luigi Mangione, the suspect in the murder of Brian Thompson, the United Healthcare CEO, being walked flanked by NYPD detectives and officers and counterterrorism officers as well, from the Wall Street heliport to a waiting vehicle where he'll be taken to the federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan. This could be the last video that we see of Mangione for some time, because as he disappears into the federal system where there are no cameras in the courtroom, there are sally ports that are heavily secured at that building. We likely won't see him walked out in public anytime soon.
Click here. All right, guys. So there's the latest, again, on the case with the CEO killer, Luigi Mangione. It's a good thing Mangione is in custody, but it also reminds us how slow the legal system can be sometimes. Cases like this show us, guys, why it's so important to make sure that justice is done fairly and quickly, especially for victims who are waiting for answers. Guys, this isn't just about one person. It's about making sure that the whole system works the way it's supposed to. When the system is slow, when it doesn't seem to care, it sends the wrong message to criminals, and we've got to show that those bad actions have real consequences, and the system is here to protect people, not let them down. Now, the other big thing that I wanted to talk about is deportations, ICE, and these Venezuelan gangs, and some very interesting things that are happening right now. But first of all, I want to say, hey, welcome to the show, everyone. Again, big shout-outs to Deanne, B1, Gene in the chat. Let's go, guys. If this is the first time you've joined the show, guys, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And always remember to hit that like button, as it does help out with the channel, helps out with that YouTube algorithm. Hope everyone is having a great night. Now, let's talk about these Venezuelan gangs, guys, because this is absolutely insane what's going on right now. There was a Venezuelan gang that was busted, and this shocking robbery exposed, guys. This is absolutely crazy what happened. Y'all check out just the latest on what's going on here.
15 suspected Tren de Aragua members were arrested after a violent home invasion in Aurora, Colorado, where cops say 2 victims were kidnapped, bound, one of them stabbed. It happened at the same apartment complex, remember that one, where this armed takeover happened this summer back in August. One Aurora councilwoman has been speaking out from the beginning.
I am tired of this being portrayed as just another gang in Aurora. This is so heinous. This is a whole different level, and I am tired of it. I've been called a liar. I've been told this was in my imagination. This has been downplayed, and people are suffering, and I will not be silenced on this issue.
Well, that woman in that soundbite, Danielle Jurinsky, joins us right now from Aurora. Danielle, good morning to you.
Good morning.
I don't get it. They called, when you were talking about simply things that had happened, they called you essentially delusional. She's a liar. It's all your imagination. You're not a liar. You're a truth teller. And it was not your imagination.
That's right. And it's interesting because our governor was asked about his comment yesterday if he would like to update that. And he really had nothing to say about this. This is unfortunately not something that you want to be able to say, I told you so on, but I told you so. And nobody wanted to listen to me. This very much turned into political theater leading up to the presidential election. And many people have suffered. This isn't just assault.
Right.
This isn't just fist fights. This is absolute torture, what some of these people have been going through. And once the Americans were moved out of the complex, this is the most vulnerable population left. These are other migrants who some of them don't even really realize where they are. They were simply dropped off in the middle of the night in some cases.
Right. And some of the torture regarding this home invasion, this most recent one there, one of the people had their fingernails pulled out. I mean, it's absolutely barbaric. There's been a sea change, though, in Aurora because you've got a new police chief now who apparently is taking this more seriously.
He is. He led a strong press conference yesterday. The police response to these two victims was huge. The police presence in this neighborhood right now is huge. He has made clear that we will not stand for this.
Right.
It is a new day in the Aurora Police Chief's office.
Yeah. And Danielle, before you go, who is it who has wanted you to essentially be quiet?
Well, it's somewhere between the Aurora mayor, the Denver mayor, the governor of Colorado, and I think local liberal media.
They just don't want you to tell people what we can see with our own two eyes right there.
That's correct.
Upside down world. Well, we appreciate your candor and your honesty and joining us today here on Fox and Friends. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
These people are obviously fed up hearing that there's no problem in Aurora, Colorado. Let's bring in Victor Avila, retired ICE supervisory special agent. He knows gangs and this territory well, a lot of experience back in Mexico with the Los Zetas drug cartel. Victor, good to have you back on the program. I want to start actually by playing this from ABC News this week. The Sunday show happened back in October, but given this news, it's quite relevant. Watch this.
The incidents were limited to a handful of apartment complexes, and the mayor said our dedicated police officers have acted on those concerns. A handful of problems.
Only, Martha, do you hear yourself? Only a handful of apartment complexes in America were taken over by Venezuelan gangs.
I mean, that's a moment that keeps on giving. You can hear how incredulous the vice president-elect is, Victor. What's your take on this crime? What markings do you see in it of potential gang activity?
A couple of things, Martha. One is that I'm glad that the city officials and police are publicly acknowledging this, because the locals and my contacts there in Colorado have known this for a long, long time. And they've been terrorized by the Tren de Aragua for a long, long time. And, one of the things that I have been studying Tren de Aragua for a long time, I've been getting a lot of updates and briefings from a lot of specialists that deal with this. This is not a gang. This is reminiscent of a cartel because of the organization, because of the backing of money, finances, activity with the actual cartel in Mexico. And more troubling is their association with, obviously, the link with Venezuela and the Maduro regime, but especially the contact that they have and the relationship with Hezbollah and Iran. And I've been trying to kind of put this out the last several months out there, because this is what my intelligence contacts are telling me to say, please mention this, Victor, because this is how makes these group of individuals a lot more dangerous, which makes it a big national security issue.
Yeah.
Guys, this makes me so sick. This arrest is such a clear example of why we've got to have stronger border security in this country. I mean, when the borders aren't secure, it becomes easier for dangerous people to sneak into the country without being caught. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. These individuals don't come here to build better lives. They come with harmful intentions. They come to commit crimes. They come to hurt innocent people. We've got to secure our borders. We've got to enforce strict immigration rules. That's the only way that we can protect our families and our communities from these specific kind of threats. Definitely be letting me know what you think in the chat, or leave a comment down below if you're watching this after the fact. If you are watching this after the fact, we do live streams every day, 5 p.m. But just insane to see what's going on with these violent gangs in Aurora.
I'm glad you brought up that theory again, and it's a very strong one. Just put the map up real quick. We have to go, but Venezuelan prison gang presence spreads across the United States, and clearly this is a destabilizing impact on our country to have this infiltration, that you discussed, and the potential ties to Hezbollah. Just a real quick back-end thought on that, Victor, before we go.
Well, it just I studied and investigated the cartels for many years, and this is just like them. These are terrorist organizations, in my opinion, that should be dealt that way. The old way that I used to investigate, and those old ways of going after these guys, is now a null and void, and really a stale way of doing this. We have to approach them a very different way, and I think we are starting January 20th.
We look forward to that, and hopefully it can eradicate these violent gangs and the very organized nature of them across the country right now. Victor Avila, always a great voice on this, of a wake-up call for all of us. Thank you, Victor.
A shocking home invasion in Aurora, Colorado, now being linked to the most vicious and bloodthirsty criminal migrant gang operating in America. ICE is now confirming 16 suspected members of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua have been taken into custody for allegedly kidnapping and torturing 2 victims. It happened at the same apartment complex that we kept showing you back over the summer, where armed migrant men were seen roaming the halls with their guns. The horrific crime now raising questions about whether Colorado officials and the media downplayed the presence of this gang in Colorado. Here's the Aurora police chief.
They were pistol whipped, they were beat, they were mistreated. One of the male was actually stabbed, he had a stab wound. So does that fall in the category of torture for me? Yeah, it does. It is incredibly hard to identify specifically as TDA because there is no specific markers. There's a high assumption that they may be affiliated with the TDA gang. But again, I am not going to say 100% positively until that is validated and verified.
Trump's incoming border czar has a message for the Aurora police chief after the arrest of the suspected gang members.
So he's talking the talk, but let's hope he walks the walk and hand these people to ICE when he's done with them, because we can remove them not only from the community but from the country. And if law enforcement officers don't help us do that, we're certainly going to do that starting January 21st.
Criminal migrants are causing chaos in the nation's biggest city. New York City Mayor Eric Adams is opening up to Martha McCallum on how he plans to get them out.
I thought our conversation was a great conversation. Tom and I both sat down, and we both agree on violent individuals should not remain in our country. What we should be doing at our border, we can be making that determination. Are we going to allow you to come in? We are creating a pipeline of criminality by creating these terrible criteria.
Judge, in Colorado, we were talking about this story, and you remember you had local officials, a congressman, and the governor even saying, it's actually not that big a deal, it's not a problem. And then you had this situation.
Well, it was clear that they were telling us not to believe our lying eyes. As we see these gangs come in with all kinds of, equipment and crowbars or whatever they're using to break open these apartment buildings. And at the same time, we were talking to people living in the apartment buildings. So they didn't want to make it look like there was a problem. But whatever their motivation was, it was a lie. Now we know that Tren de Aragua has organizations in every major city in the United States. And this was really emphasized, I think it was in October, when Martha Raddatz said to J.D. Vance at the debate, when he started talking about the Venezuelan gangs, TDA, taking over apartment complexes. And she like chides him and she says, I know exactly what you're talking about. I know the facts here. And it's limited to a handful of apartment complexes, you know, so that's okay. Look, we've
and
got
that's
some
where he
issues
said his
here.
famous line of,
Yes.
do you hear yourself?
Do you hear yourself? Exactly. Since 2022, they have spent $350 million on illegals in Colorado. $350 million. And the victims now are more afraid of the migrants than they are of the police. So at least now they're reporting these cases to the police. But we've got to understand that there is a cultural distinction. They come here, many of them, from countries where cartels run things. And their values are different than ours. And they think that they can come here and exercise the same kind of behavior. And America is complicit, especially the left, in sanctuary cities. Because in these sanctuary cities, they're saying, come to our city. We're not going to agree with ICE or deportation. And so what's going to happen is every sanctuary city is going to be loaded with those criminal illegals who do not want to be deported. That's where hell is going to start burning. All right. Now, two things that I think are important. In every matter, in every state where there is a crime committed by an illegal, there should be an enhanced punishment, one step up. Because you shouldn't be here in the first place. That's number one. And I don't give a darn if you came in on the CBP app. That's not legal as far as I'm concerned. And number two, if you kill an American citizen, there's got to be a death penalty for you.
What about the victim?
Wow, guys. What do y'all think about that? Do you agree with that? If you come into this country illegally and kill an American citizen, she just said there should be a death penalty. Do you agree with that? Let me know in the chat. See, this situation is a very strong reminder of how important it is to have clear and fair immigration policies that prioritize safety. When our system is weak, when it's ignored, it creates an opening for criminal groups like this gang to enter the country, cause harm. We've got to make sure that the process for coming into the United States is lawful, that it's controlled, so that people who arrive want to contribute. We need the people that come here to be contributed positively, not negatively, not bringing violence, not bringing crime. There's got to be clear rules, because those clear rules, they're going to benefit everyone, from those that are seeking a better life to the citizens that already live here. It's got to happen, guys. This is a common sense policy, common sense way of going about it. And it absolutely is insane that there are people on the left that would push back against these common sense policies. But anyway, let me know what you think, guys, in the chat. Don't forget, guys, if you're watching, to leave a like. I appreciate it. It supports the channel and helps out with the YouTube algorithm. All right, y'all watch the rest of this.
In this crime here who are afraid to come forward.
Well, what it looks like to me, and it seems to be happening once a month, it's collection time. They're torturing these people because they have to pay not only the apartments, they have to pay them for their fake protection, or worse, these are the ones who are collecting from the traffickers. So there's families having their fingernails pulled out. That's for information. Where's the money? When are you going to have the money? They're not killing them, they're torturing them. Right. I don't understand in any country in the world that as a mayor, you could sit there and be like, it happens a little bit. If it happens to one person, we would all be outraged. If there was one house in our neighborhood that this happened to, neighborhood watches would be formed. But the fact that they're not doing anything to these, and you want people to come out and say, hey, I need help, it's past that. They are getting tortured, their loved ones in other places. Maybe, we keep talking about where are these children? These might be the parents who are still trying to get their children, but they don't have the money, so they're getting tortured. Who are they on the phone with the whole time when you see these guys kicking in doors, answering other things? The fact that we would even have to wait to January 20. Where are the policemen? Where is the FBI? They should be cracking down. This should never have happened once. The fact that we're even talking about it is disgusting. And these families, eventually, they're not going to report, because everyone in that apartment thing heard the screams, saw what happened. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they videotaped it, and they showed everyone, if you don't pay us, this is what's going to happen to you. So it's just going to continue to grow, and eventually it's going to spill out, and it's going to start happening in the middle-class neighborhoods where they start showing up. And then it won't be until it happens into the mayor's front yard where you'll see something happen. And I hope it doesn't get that far.
And I think that this gang has presence in 29 cities, Jesse.
Yep. Yeah. It's debt bondage, you're right. So they paid the traffickers money to get smuggled, and then they owe them, and they'll never be able to work it off because why would they let you work it off? So you have millions of people who are here illegally, and they have to do whatever they're told or else they're going to get tortured. And this is going to go on for years. This could never end. So I don't see anything stopping this at all. And it's drug trafficking, sex trafficking, kidnapping, carjacking, everything's on the table. And these are poor apartment complexes. What are you going to do if there's just one door in front of you? You have people right now, CEOs of healthcare companies, hiring around-the-clock security. And even then, they don't feel safe. Every American needs to do an audit of their security at their house. They have to make sure they have firearms. You can do lights on timers. You can do motion lights. You can get Ring cameras, all sorts of cameras. Dogs, Burna.
Because this is happening in broad daylight. This isn't happening at night, Jesse. This is broad daylight.
So it's broad daylight, and you don't even know who's in the gang. There could be someone scouting for a gang that could look like an old woman, and she's actually working for the gang, and she's just doing a security check of how your posture is. Do you have a dog? Do you have a gate? Do you have a security guard? Everything is now more dangerous than it was 4 years ago, and that's because of this guy. I'm pointing this way at Jessica, and she knows what I mean by the big guy.
Just thought you were calling me a dude.
Jessica, do you want to comment on Colorado, or you watch? I know that we were together watching the Eric Adams interview with Martha McCallum, and she touched on immigration quite a bit.
Yeah, well, I think that they're linked, and there's been a lot of discussion since the election results about what the mandate is for the Republicans right now. And I think you're looking at what the mandate is, that people in blue cities across this country voted their disapproval with how it's being managed. And this is one of the key reasons for that. Not only just the migrant crisis, and Mayor Adams said that we're getting 8,000 undocumented people per week, which was obviously completely unsustainable, but people are saying there is a safety issue for us, and this is part and parcel of that. And I do think this is one of the easiest ways for liberals to break with traditional sanctuary city policy, where you say this was never conceived to protect a gang member, right? This was never conceived to protect someone who was committing violent crime. And we want to change it. And whether you put it to a vote in front of the city council and let them deal with it, let them have all of those people show up like it happened in Chicago, right? Where they opened it up and everyone came in there saying, no, we're actually not interested in being managed that way, and let them deal with it and get voted out. Or you'll see a change where people like Michelle Wu in Boston will be so out of step with the general public that there will be forced consequences to it. I think that this is, not a moment for resistance. This is a moment for cooperation to get the most dangerous undocumented people out of this country. And then we can have a conversation about everybody else.
All right, the first.
Guys, make sure, 100% make sure that you are protected. Put the lights up, get a dog for your yard, put a gun somewhere in the house that's easy to get to. Safe, obviously, but easy to access. It's just insane what is going on, and people have got to be prepared. The great thing about America is that we have so much freedom that we're able to protect ourselves, but you've got to do it. You got to protect yourself. This is insane what's happening. If someone comes into our house, like it's, we've got a plan. Make sure you've got a plan for if something bad were to happen. But anyway, because this is the thing, guys, every American deserves to feel safe in their home. Every American should feel safe in their school. With that shooting that happened the other day, it just broke my heart. Every American should feel safe in their neighborhood. Your kids ought to be able to play in your yard without you constantly worrying and fearing that something bad is going to happen. But unfortunately, cases like this show that safety isn't guaranteed when dangerous individuals are allowed into our communities. And it just makes me like get fired up. It makes me upset when we look at this kind of thing, and it makes me so sad for the victims, guys. But it's time for leaders to focus on policies that put the safety of hardworking Americans, hardworking families first. instead of pushing political agendas that don't address the real problem. We should be working on solutions that stop crime, protect the people who call this country home. Why in the world is our border open? Safety should never take a back seat to politics. And I hope that some politicians will wake up with these tragedies that are happening in American communities and will do something about it. Come on, Donald Trump, bring your team in. Let's make some stuff happen, guys. This is insane.
City Tom Homan plans to clean up is Chicago, where residents are lashing out at Mayor Brandon Johnson.
You caused all this money to go to illegal immigrants, not Harold Washington. You gonna be held accountable for it.
All you illegals, you ain't gonna have no Merry Christmas. You're gonna have a Merry Deportation Christmas.
We need Tom Homan here in Chicago. We need Donald Trump. We need to start voting different in these cities like New York and Chicago. You got a 14% approval rating, so the people is looking like they're telling you that you're fired, man. Can you do the job, Mr. Brandon Johnson?
And how did Mayor Brandon Johnson respond to his constituents? Well, he threw him out of the meeting.
Thank you. Please restore order.
Can I have your attention, please? Ladies and gentlemen, please go to your closest exit.
Joining me now, Chicago resident Vashon Tunsil, who was at that Chicago City Council meeting. Vashon, what's the biggest problem you're seeing with illegals in Chicago right now?
Well, they're getting all of our resources, all the American people in Chicago. Brandon Johnson has given these illegal immigrants over, $500 million while American people struggle and starve on the street. But not only that, now he wants to protect these illegals that's here in Chicago, Illinois, illegally. And I just don't believe that's the right thing to do as a mayor when you have a 14% approval rating. And then the people realize why our city is so bad. It's because they keep voting Democrat.
Oh, which brings me to the point. I mean, it can't be more obvious in Chicago how bad things have gotten. I mean, I think I hadn't been to Chicago in maybe 3 or 4 years when I went to the DNC with the Fox crew to cover the Democratic convention. And they cleaned it up a lot, but it was different. It's a different place. And you go to the South Side, it's even worse. And it's always been a little bit dangerous, but it's much worse. So what is it? How do they lock down as many of the voters as they do lock down to vote for the Democrats?
Well, I mean, me personally, I just think it's like a generational thing. Like their mothers and their fathers, they tell them to vote Democrat because the Republican, they're for the rich and they're for the white people and this, that, and the third, which I don't think to be true at all. I think that Republicans, they have their best interest for black people. The Democrats, they're the ones that started the KKK. And me personally, me growing up, and I see the Democratic Party, you look at people like Barack Obama, and it's just like it's not looking good for what they're doing to these inner cities like Chicago and New York. And I just feel like it's just brainwashing at this point.
Yeah, what did Obama do for Chicago? I mean,
Absolutely.
Vashon, wait, hold on one moment. The incoming board czar, Tom Homan, is actually still with us, and he's been listening in on the conversation, everything you've been saying. I think he wants one of your hats. Can you tell Tom directly what you need him to do in Chicago, Vashon?
Well, first I want to say is thank you so much for joining me, Tom Homan. I really appreciate these words with you. And sir, please, I don't care what Brandon Johnson tell you, please come clean up Chicago, Illinois. We need you, Tom Homan. This place sucks right now. And like you said, our city sucks because our governor sucks and our mayor sucks. You were absolutely right about that. And I mean, it couldn't get more broad than that. And I just really appreciate you coming here, just speaking to the people of Chicago, listening to us more than our own mayor. You're actually doing a better job than the mayor is when it comes to listening to us.
Tom?
Well, look, I was there 2 weeks ago, and I spoke to the people there, and you're right. I said the mayor sucks and the governor sucks because of them protecting illegal aliens in your city, especially criminal illegal aliens. Their number one responsibility is protecting the communities. So look, I made a promise 2 weeks ago that I'd be back, and I will be back when this operation starts. I will be in Chicago. And men and women at ICE are going to be on the streets doing their job. So I appreciate your support. And I met with, when I was out there, I met with black pastors. I met with leaders of the community. They're all on the same page. The only one on a different page is the mayor. And we're going to prove to him that we can come in and make that city safer with or without his help.
Thank you so
Vashon,
much, Tom Homan.
Yeah, Vashon and Tom, we're going to check back with you in, let's say, a couple of months, Tom, to see how things have changed. We'll give you 3 months to see how things are progressing, because it's not going to happen overnight. This is going to be a process. And if I know one thing about Tom Homan, he's unstoppable once he actually has the power and the authority to act. So I know that about Tom very well. Vashon and Tom, thank you both.
Hey. Okay, guys, so there you go. Latest update on this. Really sad what's going on in our American communities, but I'll try to keep you updated on all of the latest updates as we find out more about these Venezuelan gangs that are just being allowed to run rampant in our streets. But hey, again, I want to give big shout outs, guys, to OG Dog in the chat, Gene, B1, Sly One, Diane was here earlier, or Deanne, sorry. So big shout outs to y'all. Appreciate all the support, guys, in the chat. Hey, if this is your first time watching, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, join our community of Americans that aren't afraid to stand up, guys, and say something about the crazy, insane policies that are trying to be pushed through. Y'all were talking about it in the chat earlier. So glad that that bill didn't get pushed through yesterday. Absolutely insane. Hey, I want to leave you with this clip of a Democratic lawmaker, Rick Larson, and he speaks about the potential shutdown of the government. This is his response to everything that happened yesterday. I want y'all to see this and notice his language, right? I mean, I've shown you a lot of clips from the right, a lot of clips from, Donald Trump and all this, but I want to show you what someone on the left is doing to try to connect and try to push through these insane bills. Just listen to his language, listen to the words that he says as he tries to show that Elon Musk, Donald Trump, the Doge Committee, trying to make Americans feel stupid for not supporting this bill. It's crazy. It's insane. Y'all listen to this.
Hi, it's Representative Rick Larson, and this is not the weekly recap with Rick because there's nothing to recap really that's as important as what is going on right now. And the main question I want to ask you is who is in charge? Who is in charge of the U.S. House of Representatives right now? Here on Capitol Hill, we're waiting for the House of Representatives to go back into session and waiting for the House Republican leadership to do something about funding the government. But who's in charge of this? Is it Elon Musk, the billionaire? Is it President-elect Trump, the person who is not yet president? I ask that question because Republicans, under the direction of a cosplaying President Elon Musk and a very confused president yet to be Trump, they have pulled out of the bipartisan funding agreement to keep the government funded. Congress needs to pass this bill to keep government operating and send this bill to President Biden's desk where it can be signed into law, and it has to happen by tomorrow night at 11:59 p.m. East Coast time. If we don't do that, the government will shut down. And if the government shuts down, it will clearly be on due to the hands of the Republicans. A shutdown would be devastating for the people in the communities I represent. Yes, thousands, tens of thousands of active duty military folks who live in Washington State will continue to go to work every day during a shutdown, but they will not get paid. They will not get paid. So that is what a Republican shutdown, a Musk Republican shutdown will mean. Tens of thousands of workers who work every day to ensure that the government is working for you will not get paid and will not be going to work as well. That means they won't have money to spend over Christmas. They won't have money to spend at the grocery store. They'll be biting into their savings. You, watching this, you may be one of those folks who will be biting into your savings in order to survive a potential shutdown. Women, infants, children who live in my district are, some of them are dependent upon support in order to ensure that their children grow up healthy. That kind of those kinds of folks will be impacted negatively by the Musk Republican government shutdown. Now, I will say this: Democrats have been part of bipartisan agreements throughout the last 2 years. On the FAA bill, a strong bipartisan agreement. On the defense bill, a strong bipartisan agreement. On supporting America's foreign policy and our strong foreign policy, Democrats have been part of bipartisan agreements. We were part of the bipartisan agreement to keep the government operating as well, but it was the Republicans under Speaker Johnson who publicized the text, the final agreement, and it was the Republicans who pulled out of that final agreement as well. And that final agreement includes disaster relief for farmers in Washington State. It includes disaster relief for Washington State to repair some of the roads and highways that have been damaged in past wildfires. It includes disaster relief for the poor folks in North Carolina, Tennessee, and Florida that were victims of Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton. All of that is on hold now because of the desire of Elon Musk and the Republicans to shut down the government. But we stand ready to negotiate in good faith, in a bipartisan way, as we have throughout this entire Congress. But I couldn't tell you who we're supposed to negotiate with right now. Is it Speaker Johnson? Is it Elon Musk? Is it not yet President Trump? We don't know who's in charge in the Republican Party right now. And if it's any indication of the next 2 years, we're in for a lot of chaos in the House of Representatives. Meantime, middle-class Americans are being held hostage by a billionaire who's pulling the puppet strings on the president yet to be Trump. It's not a recipe for get solutions done, but I stand ready here in DC to be part of getting a resolution to this potential shutdown, which would have devastating consequences. So keep watching this space and hope to have your continued support. Thanks.
Oh my goodness, guys. Don't you just cringe a little bit listening to that? I have words for it. And isn't that hilarious how he's like, we don't know who's in charge of the Republican Party. Where have you been the last 8 years? There's a very clear leader in the Republican Party, and his name is Donald Trump. It's like, it's so hilarious listening to this guy because he's just like pulling things out of this dumb script that he pulled up, trying to convince but Americans are smarter than that. Nobody's buying this, right? Like the arguments that he's making are so paper thin. Of course, we don't want the government to shut down, but if you're going to build a bill and stuff it with a bunch of pay raises for yourself and just insane policies, well, no, of course we're not going to pass that. If he actually wanted to be part of a solution, then they would craft a bill that was readable, not so long that you can't even read it in the amount of time that from the time they wrote it to the time that they're trying to pass it, there's not even enough time there to read the bill. Like, you would have to be the craziest speed reader on earth to get through it, and they're trying to pass it. It's absolutely insane. It's because a ton of people wrote it. They put in the stuff that they wanted for like pay raises and money being just sent out all over the place. It's crazy how much money was in that bill. And then he gets up here, wants to make this video, and he's like, if you don't pass this bill, the government's going to shut down, and your families are going to suffer, and it's all notice what he kept saying, the Musk Republican resistance, or, you know, it's hilarious. The Musk Republicans. Watch out for those Musk Republicans. He's trying to make the word Musk like a bad word, you know, like, oh, those Musk Republicans. Anyway, it's hilarious, guys. I just had to add this in on the end just for a little bit of comic relief. Hopefully your blood pressure didn't go up too much there. But anyway, I hope everyone has a great night, guys. Hey, thanks for tuning into the show. Appreciate all the support again for everyone in the chat. OG Dog, Gene, B1, Sly1. Thanks so much for your continued support. Thanks for liking the video, guys. It really does help out. Appreciate everybody that watched all the way to the end. Y'all are the real ones. Y'all are definitely the real ones. Hey, I'll be back tomorrow with another stream. Y'all take it easy, guys. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you on the next one.